Marvel Comics and DC Comics are two of the biggest franchises today that deal with superheroes, supervillains, cosmic entities, to everything in between. They share multiple similarities whether it comes to concepts or characters, but one of the most recent developments in DC had the Justice League face off against Godzilla and other kaijus along the way. Several decades before, Marvel Comics had also introduced the Atomic Lizard into their ranks, who ran a gauntlet through the Fantastic Four and even the Avengers. But when it comes to their power, speed, and accolades, which of the two is superior and who would win in a fierce encounter? Before we break them down, I'd like to point out something really quick. Yep, DC Godzilla did not fight Prime Earth, aka Rebirth Superman, but according to the writer, the version Big G fought is just as strong as him. You can be skeptical on this, but I'll break down why I think it's not far-fetched for alternate versions of heroes to be relative or comparable to each other, as I'll showcase multiple examples of once we get to the DC side of things. But for now, we'll start with Marvel Godzilla. Woken up as a result of an atomic bomb, this titanic green iteration of Big G was definitely not a pushover, as he performed a lot of insane feats. For starters, he gets hit by a massive energy blast composed of over 9,000 lasers. It hurts him, but he endures. The tech was created by Tony Stark, and for reference, classic era Tony has created repulsor and absorption tech strong enough to stalemate Silver Surfer's power cosmic blast, which can destroy galaxies. And he's even managed to knock back the Hulk with them. Godzilla is outright called the most dangerous and one of the most powerful beings alive on Earth, and for good reason, as he was able to make Hercules struggle immensely in toppling him over, and Goji even manages to react to him throwing a piece of a bridge at him. With Hercules being able to keep up with beings like Thor, who can move at massively faster than light speeds, and can even reach immeasurable speeds, or speed, beyond linear time. Later on, he faces off against Red Ronin, a crimson mech with a magnificent blade powered by the sun. Although the pilot, Rob, suppressed the blade's power at first, Big G was able to endure more potent hits from it numerous times, and even reacts to the mech's laser, further proving that he has FTL reaction times at this point. Eventually, Godzilla allies up with Red Ronin and fights against 3 kaiju aliens from an alien race that was hell-bent on taking over the Earth. Red Ronin fights bravely, but eventually gets decapitated and put out of commission in the battle. In response, Godzilla unleashes more power and takes them down one by one. He even showcases intelligence by avoiding a monster's bladed tail, and manages to defeat them all, even after they got amped by 10 times, which is stated more than once. To further showcase that he is not a mindless beast, he could also sense malice from someone trying to shoot people, and even realizes that Rob, a Godzilla sympathizer, was trying to help him. At that point, the heroes realized that they couldn't really stop Godzilla, so their plan was to capture him after shrinking him using Hank Pym's gas, which does manage to work. And even with this decreased size and power, he was able to slap around the Thing and the Human Torch, with the Thing being able to clash with the Silver Surfer and even a power cosmic amped Dr. Doom before. Even Invisible Woman's powerful barriers were unable to hold him for long. However, he does eventually get knocked out by Mr. Fantastic, wrapping himself around his head, depleting his oxygen reserves. The Fantastic Four then come up with another resort, which was to use Dr. Doom's time machine to send Godzilla back in time, which does work momentarily, but whether as a result of Godzilla's immense radiation levels, a slingshot effect, or a combination of these factors, Godzilla is sent back to the present, albeit with his mind scrambled, putting him into a rage state, and he starts to rampage around New York City. Mr. Fantastic realizes the huge threat that the radioactive lizard possesses and decides to get help from the Avengers, which all start ganging up on him with little effect. Thor, the god of thunder, prior to even fighting him, doubted that his strength would be enough to compete with the beast, says that he is savage without compare, and he even compares him to the Midgard serpent, who was big and strong enough to coil around the Earth and threaten to crush it, and who is so long that he could reach Asgard from the Earth, which is an infinite distance away. Thor does manage to match Godzilla's physical power, but the Avengers and the Fantastic Four pretty much had no clear answer to taking him down. In effect, Rob manages to reach Godzilla and pleads for him to stop his rampage, which does manage to work as he eventually descends into the sea, ending the conflict then and there. And albeit off-screen, Godzilla also manages to defeat the Hulk in this run, which is very impressive for a vast number of reasons. For one, classic-era Hulk was able to destroy a machine meant to withstand the might of Celestials, hyperdimensional beings well beyond time-space. Hulk was also able to defeat a robot named Crypto Man that had half the power of Thor, and even manages to overpower it even after its power is doubled. He even manages to destroy Nightcrawler's dimension, which is pretty insane due to this realm being beyond the void, which transcends Asgard, which is beyond the mortal bounds of space and time and the normal universe, which has multiple, if not an endless number of spatial dimensions. You could even argue that Nightcrawler's domain is on a comparable scale to the Dark Dimension in the realms of other Hell Lords, which has countless realms between there and Asgard, and in effect, the normal universe as well. These realms are also referred to as being formless and beyond mortal comprehension. So, to say that Hulk destroyed a hyperversal if not an outerversal realm is not out of the question. This level of power is consistent since Hulk was also able to shake the Crossroads in his battle with the UFOs, which was connected to infinite dimensions. The Green Goliath was also able to destroy classic Doctor Strange's barriers, which had protected him from battles with Dormammu and other Hell Lords. And he's even been able to destroy a time storm with a punch, which even Kang's massively faster than light ship could not pierce through. Beating Hulk and matching Thor would mean that Godzilla would also scale from the God of Thunder showings. Thor has been able to match the Hulk, withstand gravity levels that approach infinity, withstand the gravitational pull of a neutron star, and withstand the weight of 20 planets. Although classic Thor was not quite on the level of Skyfathers like Odin and Hell Lords like Mephisto, he was pretty damn close to those echelons due to multiple showings around this era. For instance, he was able to contend for a good amount of time against Zeus, who is equal to Odin, who is equal to Surtur, who in his battle with the Allfather shook the 9 realms, which are full-fledged universes. Zeus even went as far as praising Thor and saying that he provided more competition than the Titans did. Thor has even managed to overwhelm Hela to the point he made her run away. Additionally, he was able to knock back Galactus and make him retreat, with him even going as far as saying that he had never felt pain like that before. To get even crazier, he has even managed to clash with Mephisto somewhat and has countered his soul hacks on multiple occasions during the classic era, with Mephisto being strong enough to match Hela and who exists in a realm of similar scope to Dormammu's Dark Dimension, which is at least outerversal. Thor does confirm after his physical struggle with Godzilla that he could in fact match his might, but before the encounter he had less confidence than he did against Skyfather and Hell Lord level beings, which leads me to believe that Godzilla is in a comparable scope to them as well. At bare minimum, in terms of attack potency and durability, Marvel Godzilla should be casually complex multiversal, but he's likely hyperversal and outerversal, going by the immense size of the Marvel cosmology. As for speed, he's clearly massively faster than light, if not immeasurable, if he can keep up with the likes of Thor and Hercules, who are comparable to and have fought the Silver Surfer, who can fly across countless galaxies in mere moments, and who can even fight while time traveling at the same time, proving that their combat speeds are at least comparable to their travel speeds, but likely much greater. That's not to mention that the more pain he receives, the more enraged he becomes, which in turn gives him more power, at least by a factor of 10 times, as showcased in his battle with the 3 space kaiju. As for DC Godzilla, he was able to not only dish out potent hits against the Man of Steel himself, but he could also keep up with them, and his atomic breath even managed to nearly kill him if it wasn't for Batman's efforts to send him towards the sunlight for him to heal. Although, the writer does state that the radiation signature of Goji's atomic breath is similar to that of kryptonite. So, whether or not Godzilla's raw power itself can do as much damage to Superman is up to interpretation. Not to mention, he didn't even get hit by it legitimately since he was just trying to save Shazam. Regardless, it's still pretty impressive that Godzilla could nearly kill Superman, since the Man of Tomorrow withstood being affected by multiple kinds of kryptonite and the anti-life equation at the same time. Yeah, these variants of the Justice League are featless, but according to the writer Brian, he said that this version of Superman is just as strong as the Prime Earth version. You could even say that he is contradictory in his statements, since he has also gone on record to say that crossverse intellectual properties cannot really be power scaled and are purely subjective at the end of the day. There's also other stuff that points towards this likely being a post-Crisis era story, and not from the Rebirth era, because Superman has not married Lois Lane yet. But for the sake of the argument, we will grant Godzilla the highest scaling possible from keeping up with Superman. I also think it's not far-fetched to say that this version of the Justice League is at least relative, if not comparable, to the Rebirth versions, due to other heroes from other timelines being able to keep up with each other before. Take for instance the battles between the Batman and the Superman in Countdown Arena, Golden Age Superman keeping up with both pre-Crisis and post-Crisis Superman, New 52 Hal Jordan fighting Parallax Hal Jordan, Wade's Flash being stated to being as fast as his other versions, or when 2 Batmen faced off in the New 52 comics. In effect, how strong would this make DC Godzilla? Well, Rebirth Superman, being an amalgamation of New 52 and post-Crisis Superman, should at least be as strong as them, but likely far stronger. New 52 Superman has been able to move in a timeless void and punch Brainiac so hard, his other versions could feel it across the multiverse. Post-Crisis Superman has even been able to withstand the collision between the hyper-giant planets Apocalypse and New Genesis, which exists in the God Sphere, a platonic archetypal realm beyond the Bleed, which contains more than 6 spatial dimensions. With there being 11, 14, 19, 28, and even over 196,000 dimensions. At the very least, making the baseline DC universe hyperversal, but more than likely outerversal, since it is confirmed that there are innumerable or infinite spatial dimensions and vectors. Not only in the comics, but by the authors and writers as well. Superman has also been able to withstand an explosion in the Source Wall, which transcends not only the God Sphere, but the Monitor Sphere as well, with these realms housing infinite limbos and infinite worlds within. In the same arc, he was able to survive an attack from Soulfire Darkseid, albeit Darkseid does admit that he wasn't wholly adjusted to his newfound existence and power, but still pretty impressive. Rebirth Superman in his battle with Rogol-Zar has been able to shake the Phantom Zone, a boundless dimensionless realm of similar nature to the subspace in Dragon Ball, and he's outright stated that if he really wanted to, he could destroy it. To further exemplify his great power, he was able to punch away Barbatos, a massively powerful cosmic being that could bring death to billions of universes. He even manages to defeat an Amp Metallo, who was powered by an Orphan Box, a massively potent device powered by the Source, which transcends time, space, life, death, and entropy. He would also scale from The Flash, Eobard, Thawne, and Godspeed, who took hits from Paradox and could fight him, who was affecting the entire DC Multiverse time stream, which in turn was called the greatest battle the multiverse had ever seen. The Flash's Infinite Mass Punch also managed to affect Crisis on Infinite Earth's Anti-Monitor as he toppled him through numerous realities, who was going to consume the Infinite Multiverse. It was also straight up called the mightiest punch in the multiverse, putting it above Superboy Prime's Radcom Punch, New 52 Superman's punch on Brainiac, or God of Strength Superman being able to make the Anti-Monitor bleed. And although he was amped, Superman more than likely showcased an even stronger punch in his battle with the World Forger. And you could attribute this feat more so to the Speed Force itself and not raw power alone, but Barry and Wally could tear the fabric of the entire multiverse in their race, to the point that Highfather, who resides in the God Sphere, thought that the energy was coming from the source itself. Superman, in turn, could theoretically accomplish a similar skill feat. The Man of Steel would also skill from Wonder Woman, who can destroy the Cronus Scepter, which has the God Wave power, which can affect and cause the source to die. She also deflects the power of the God Wave with her bracelet, so this is consistent. Finally, Superman would also scale from Hal Jordan, who could defeat Krona, a villain who amplified himself with every emotional entity, including Parallax, which is pretty insane because this yellow monstrosity amplified pre-Crisis Hal Jordan to the point he would have caused a multiversal timeline cataclysm on a similar scope to the one that the Anti-Monitor would have brought into the fray. Parallax was also so strong on its own that even the Spectre was afraid of him, with the Spectre being strong enough to contend with the Anti-Monitor, and although he was generally inferior, he was considered a formidable foe by Michael Demiurgos, an angel that exists beyond the God Sphere and the Monitor Sphere, and is essentially an aspect of the presence itself. Other emotional entities like Ion also greatly amplified Sodam Yat, a Daxamite, to the point that he could also legitimately contend with Superboy Prime, who was so strong that he could fight Golden Age and Post-Crisis Superman at the same time, who has multiversal, hyperversal, and even outerversal feats as I mentioned before. So, if just one emotional entity has enough power to bring about hyperversal and even outerversal levels of power, it's insane to think about how strong Hal Jordan and Superman as a result would be, since Krona got defeated even with the power of multiple insanely powerful entities. In the grand scope of things, if we are going simply off of feats, then Marvel Godzilla certainly takes the cake here, since he did fight 616 versions of the heroes, which makes scaling a lot more streamlined and with less headcanon. However, if we are going by statements, then I believe that DC Godzilla would win due to current DC comics having a generally greater cosmology than classic Marvel had back then. I'd also be pretty confident in saying that current Superman would body classic Thor and Hulk, and as a result, DC Godzilla would wreck Marvel Godzilla as well, going by that logic. For another scenario, if we said that they were both comparable regarding their respective cosmologies, then I would give the slight edge to Marvel Godzilla due to one huge factor, that being his rage boost, which would come as a result of pain that he receives in battle. So even if DC Godzilla has some sort of advantage at the start, Marvel Godzilla would eventually overtake him and come out on top. But yeah, there you go. Do you agree with the verdict? Which version of Big G do you like the most, and which one were you rooting for? Please let me know, like the video, and be sure to subscribe for more comics and Godzilla content down the line. Thanks so much for watching, and peace out.